Welcome to Coming In Hot with Caroline. We are so excited for this conversation today. You guys, I have Tara Hopkins, and I'm going to tell you all about her in 1 second. But please like, review, leave a comment. We're so excited for you to be here. Thank you for listening, and let's get started. So we have Tara Hopkins here today, and I am so excited. First of all, Tara, hi. Hi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. And I think everyone in my audience is going to be very excited for this conversation. You're the Global Director of Public Policy. I just want to get that title right because you deserve it.
Yes,
You've earned
that's
it.
correct.
And Tara, can you tell us a little bit about your background, please?
Absolutely, with pleasure. So I have been with Instagram, with kind of Meta for 6 years. I'm global director for public policy, and that really is looking at how we are operating in the world, making sure that we are listening and talking to some of the most important people who are using our platforms, particularly parents. So I spend a lot of time talking to and with parents and civil society and governments, and making sure that we are where we need to be when it comes to the services and the platform we're providing. I have a background in both government and in child protection. So I started off my career, I'm Irish, and I started my career in Brussels working in the European Commission. And then I moved to London, and I spent time working for one of the largest child protection charities in the UK, working on some really tough and meaty issues. And since then, I jumped across into the private sector because I really felt like actually that is where you really can see the difference. And so I worked on business and human rights for a long time in the resources sector, and then to Instagram 6 years ago. So yeah, majority of the time I'm spending on Instagram is on youth issues. Not entirely, but like a lot of what I do is around keeping young people who are using our platform safe, and making sure we're developing the platform and keeping us where we need to be.
I just think it's incredible because, of course, I have two teenage boys. I have a 13
Yeah.
and a 15-year-old. Believe it or not, my 13-year-old does not have any social media. I don't
I
know
mean,
how we've accomplished this, but
yeah.
thank God. You know, what's funny is my 15-year-old, he's on, but he kind of more watches. He doesn't post. He doesn't like to be on. He doesn't like his photo on there. And it's been really interesting, obviously, not only being a parent, but also being a parent that's in content creation and on social media 24/7.
Yeah.
And, really navigating this now. I did not grow up with social media. I'm 53 years old. I did not have a camera watching everything I ever did, right? Like, it really is something that's mind blowing in this generation. Like, they do not know what it's like to not have everything filmed and not have us all see everything you're doing. You have kids, right?
I do. So I was going to say, I have two children as well. I have a 15-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy.
The
So
same
very similar
age. Oh my
to,
God.
yeah, same
Do they have
ages.
social
Yeah.
media?
So yes, they do. So my 15-year-old daughter has social media. She has Instagram, and she's got Snap, and she's got TikTok. My son turned 13 only about 3 weeks ago. So he didn't, but he has like things like YouTube Shorts. So like
Yes.
he does spend time. I mean, I'm not going to lie, he spends
Yes.
time on his screen, and I feel a real sense of honestly frustration. I'd love to get into kind of the
Yes.
difference between boys and girls as well, because I'm, as a mom to a boy, I'm only now kind of navigating the boy as he's growing up,
Yes.
and it feels quite different. He now wants to have social media. I'm holding off, honestly, because he is, I mean, I hope he never listens to this,
I know.
but he's a little bit more immature than my daughter.
Yep.
She's very mature and has been. I think one of the things that we really try to do at Instagram, we'll get stuck into teen accounts, and parents know their children best.
Yeah.
And they know their teens best. And you say your 13-year-old doesn't have social media. Great. I mean, if he and you don't feel like it's right for him yet, like that's the right thing to do.
What you understand too, it's like when you have a child, again, like you said, us parents have to take responsibility in this. It's so easy to point the finger at Instagram and social media and social platforms. But again, as a parent, understanding who your child is, because my child was a little more awkward. Hope he doesn't listen to this either. And a little bit more of the techie, nerdy, didn't have a lot of friends. And I said, imagine him on social media watching everyone hanging out or on Snapchat, and he's left out. It'd be awful for his mental health, honestly.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
like what
yeah,
you said, you have to know your kids.
you know your kids, you buy the phone, or you hand
Yeah.
your teenager the phone, And absolutely, you know them better than anyone. You know them sometimes better than they know themselves, because they're teens. They're really in that developing stage. And there's such a huge difference between a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, or the difference between a 14-year-old girl and a 14-year-old boy. That's what I'm finding. My daughter, when she was 13 and a half, 14, I really felt like she would get a lot out of the contact with friends on social media. Whereas with my son, he actually has a bit more of an addictive personality. And I think, okay, yes, you can. I'll decide the time, but I'll be really constraining the amount of time you spend, and not just on social media, because he loves gaming, loves YouTube shorts. A lot of his football creators, he loves football. So it's about screen time. That is it's and look, I'm going to say that because I work for Instagram. Of course, people are
No,
probably
but it's
thinking I'm
true.
biased, but
I want to hear what you
yeah,
think. Yeah.
it's screen time. It's not, what the research that we've seen at Instagram is, teenagers do not spend all of their time on one app. That is not how they behave. They jump from one to the other. And there's research in the US that says that I think teens have on average about 45 apps on their phones. And yeah, and that sounds scary, but then when you kind of break down, you think, okay, well, you've got your social media app, you've got your messaging apps. Schools often use apps to communicate.
True.
Football clubs use apps to communicate the weather.
True.
I mean, and they'll, fitness apps, and we all want our teens to think about their fitness and their mental
Yes.
health, and they're using, Calm in the evenings, or podcasts, or so it's you break it down and think, okay, actually maybe but it sounds really scary,
Yeah,
right?
it does.
So you have to, when you're thinking and you're talking to your teen, you have to talk about the whole ecosystem and not just one app. I think you can talk about social media, you can talk about messaging. Sometimes social media, like Instagram, is both. It's social media, and direct
Yeah.
messaging is like this wonderful way you communicate
Yeah.
through Instagram, I think. But then there's a whole lot of other ways they're using Google search, right, for their homework. And it's just the screen, the amount of time they're spending on the screen, and how they're jumping from one thing to the other. They're digital natives. I really feel strongly that they get a huge amount of benefit from being digital natives.
What do you
You,
see
I
as the benefit? Because I do too. I feel like the future is technology. So for us to think that kids, to take away all technology, personally, I think is ridiculous. My husband works in tech. This is just not, we believe in technology. And how do we use it correctly? How do we use it so it benefits us and not, hurts us? But how do you see it, honestly?
So I say there's two ways that I see it really is. I mean, I'll talk with Instagram, and then kind of
Please.
more broadly, I'd love to get your thoughts on this
Yes.
as well. So I think on Instagram, it started off life as a place of creativity. It was photographers who were sharing their work, and creatives who were sharing their work. And really at the heart of it, that's what it still is. So there's a huge amount of creativity that happens on Instagram, and teens are extraordinarily creative. And so they're doing it like in different ways to maybe the ways I did it when I was in my
Right.
20s and 30s.
Right.
But so I think creativity, I think building and developing the way they're creating is really interesting. I mean, honestly, humor,
I
there's just
love it. I
fun.
laugh all time.
Yeah. And it's just downtime. If you want to have 10 minutes between studying, right? And my daughter at the moment is studying for exams here
Yeah.
in London. But you just look some reels, you have a giggle, and you go back to your work.
Yeah.
Or you share a reel with a friend, and you both have a giggle, and you DM each other and say, isn't that funny? Or might remind you of like a teacher or a
Yeah.
friend or whatever. So it's fun and joy. And then honestly, I think it's really, really important that teens use social media to connect to each other with their friends, and they're building community, and they're talking. And when I was younger, I would come home from school and I'd get straight on the old-fashioned telephone,
Yep.
and I would speak to my girlfriends for 2 hours after school. I would just chat to them,
Me
right?
too.
And I
Remember when they had to
kind of
call and talk
recognize,
to your
yes,
parents and had to ask for
yes,
you? I'm like,
yes,
the kids
yeah,
have
I
no idea
know.
what that is.
Yeah, and you knew all of your, do you remember, you knew all your friends'
Yes.
home telephone numbers.
Yes.
I can still recite them.
I know, Tara. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes.
And teens are still doing that. They're just doing it on messaging and on social media, and they're jumping between DMing each other, then maybe FaceTiming each other because they're all giggling about, like, they're jumping around using in so many different ways. And I really don't think it's a good idea for us to take our experience and say, oh, it's better for them to be on the phone speaking. Look, they're communicating in the way that is their digital natives. That's
I
how they
agree.
do it, right? And it doesn't stop them from also speaking on the phone, or what my daughter does mostly, and I have to be really careful when I go into her room, is she'll have a friend on a video call. And so I had to really have a walk in and I'm like looking, crazy. And so they're just, I think
Yeah,
they're the three things. I think really creativity. I think it's humor and joy and fun. And it's about connecting to community. And then look, there are more vulnerable groups I would call out, which is when you're a teen and you're exploring who you are, you might not feel like the people in your community around you are the same as you. So I'm originally from Ireland,
yeah,
and Ireland in the 1990s was not the progressive, open place that it is today. And if you were a young gay teenager in Ireland, honestly, you would probably get to 18 and move to New York
absolutely. You're right.
because
Yeah,
that's where your people were. So
absolutely. Yeah,
and I think now teens are able to use social media to connect with a community that they really, that they identify with. And I
right.
think, again, you can do that now globally, which is extraordinary. So I think
Extraordinary.
there are huge benefits, but look,
What
there are
are the
also
cons?
pitfalls. Yeah,
Tell us the
yeah,
cons because I started all of this and I go on social media to create, to learn. It isn't to
yeah,
bully. It isn't to just, absorb and absorb and absorb it. It really is supposed to be informational, a learning experience, like you said, funny. And we talk to the boys a lot about that. That isn't about
yes,
consumption, it's about creation. And if you're
yes,
creating something and learning, we're okay with you being on. It's the
yeah,
constant consumption and what that can do to you. Can you talk a little bit about the negatives you have seen that we know that's not the
yeah,
purpose? No one set out for it to have negative side effects, but what have you
yeah.
seen as the biggest side effects that now you're creating these teen accounts, which I think is
That, yeah.
incredible?
So yes, of course there are
Yeah.
downsides, and I think what we've done at Instagram in look since well before I started working there, which is
Yeah.
6 years ago, we've had teams that are devoted to keeping young people and keeping our community safe when they're using Instagram. What's changed in the last couple of years is that we've gone out and had really more intentional, deeper conversations with parents to really get to the bottom of what are they concerned about, right?
Yeah.
Because you can sense this is growing interest
Yeah.
that parents want to be more involved, which is
Yes.
great, but they're a bit daunted because often the parents of teenagers might not have they didn't grow up with Instagram and they might be daunted by they don't really know how TikTok works
Yeah.
and all these things.
Yeah.
So we went out, we spoke to parents directly, we did a bunch of research in the US and other countries. And the three things that parents told us about, and it was the same really pretty much anywhere in the world and
Yeah.
kind of whatever your economic background is, that parents are concerned about is who is able to contact my teen
Yes.
when they're using social media. Is it can a stranger get in touch with my teen when they're on Instagram? That's a concern, right? That kind of
Huge
stranger
concern.
danger, very real concern that
That's mine.
parents
Yes.
genuine concern.
Yes.
I think it's every. So that came to us over and over again. I'll talk about what we
Great.
do to make sure
Okay.
that doesn't happen. The second one was the content. So what are they seeing? Is it age appropriate? Are they coming across content that they shouldn't see? Yeah, is it inappropriate or is it worse? Is it like content that
Yes.
violates our platform rules? So how easy is it and what are you recommending to my teen? Again, I think a very, very real question that has come from parents. And then the third one is we can talk about bullying and harassment because I think that's very much top of mind for
Unfortunately,
parents.
yes, it is.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course it is. And then the other one is around time. So what is the right amount of social media? And honestly, this is really hard because there is no there like doctors haven't come out and said it should be 20 minutes or who do you ring when you're a parent and you often ask your friendship groups, but there is no conclusive research or evidence to say this amount of time or that amount of time is the right amount of time, and that's because it depends, as you said, on what you're doing. So if you're creating, if you're finding humor, if you're connecting, then maybe 40 minutes is fine.
Right.
If you're scrolling and you're not getting, and it's making you feel, as you say, you're
Yes.
making you feel like you've got your fear of missing out, that's not good. So 5 minutes, that might have a negative impact on you. So I think parents are really concerned about that. They're the three things that they came back over
So
and over
true.
with.
Yes.
And so, and what we've done is we've long had tools. In fact, I think we talk about a number, like we've had 50 tools that we built to
50?
keep young people safe. But what we were
Wow.
finding is parents were so confused, right? I don't blame them. They felt a real burden. They have the parental settings on Instagram and how they're different from TikTok, or how are they different
Yes.
from, Facebook, or, again, a completely fair point.
And Tara, a lot of us
They
didn't
felt,
grow up with it. A lot of us, this is new
they
to
didn't.
us. So
Yeah,
the kids know more than we do at this
yeah,
point,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is
they do. And I
scary.
think, and parents are just, and you go through the first stage of trying to set up maybe parental controls, and then you get completely bamboozled, and the kettle starts ringing, and you just put the phone down and you forget
Yes.
about it. Like, this is the reality of how parents are
True.
operating. So what we did with teen accounts on Instagram, which we launched in September in the US, September of last year in the US, is the intention was to just completely take that burden from parents as much as we could. And what we do now is that any teen under the age of 18, when they either join Instagram, or if they've already been on Insta, they already have an account on
Yeah.
Instagram, what we've done is we've moved them across to have our most restrictive settings when it comes to who can contact them, the content that they see, and the time that they spend on our platform. So we've also created new tools, and I'll talk about those. But what we really did, first of all, and fundamentally, was to take every teen that we know is under the age of 18. So they have a state age that told us their age. We can get into that as well, as like how
I
we
will.
understand.
I know I have friends, kids who lied and put fake.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah,
like, what? They're so smart, these kids. They get around everything. So yeah, keep going, Tara. I want to hear
yeah,
every
yeah.
detail,
I'd love to
please.
dig into age, but just on the teen account. So
Yeah.
we know you're under the age of 18. We basically have automatically placed the teenager into the teen account experience. We send, so every teen in the US who's now in a teen account will be sent a pop-up on Instagram to say, hey, we've created this, new protective settings for you. They like the word protective. They don't like the words restrictive. So we've done a lot of work to kind of speak the language of teens. And we give them 7 days notice, and then we just automatically put them into our most restrictive settings. And those settings are things like private by default. So you might have joined Instagram. We would have given you a private account, say this time last year when you were 15, you joined Instagram, we would have placed you in a private account. Now what's different is we're pushing you back into the private account. And if you're under the age of 16, you can't change that to a public account unless you get your parents' permission to do so.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've really moved them into the most restrictive settings. And then if you're under that age of 16, recognizing, again, speaking with parents, that parents are more concerned about their 13, 14, 15-year-old than they are their kind of 17 and a half year old,
Right.
who's like, they might be starting to, go into
Interesting.
college,
Yeah.
and they're in a very different place.
Yes.
So we put them in the most restrictive settings, and then if they want to change any of those, they get a pop-up to say you cannot change the setting without getting your parents to approve it.
Wow.
And then it instantaneously triggers the parental supervision tool, which is really easy. The team will ask the parent to join, and then the parent will get a notification to say, hey, your teen has asked if they can change their account, say, back to public. Do you give it your approval? And the
Oh,
idea being that if a parent wants to just not be involved, they just know that their teen is in the most restrictive settings. But if the teen wants to change them and they bring the parent and the parent gets involved, what we really hope it does is it brings an opportunity to have a conversation around the dinner table or in the car on the way to, football training
yeah.
or whatever, to say, hey, I saw you wanted to have a public account. How come? Do you know what it means to have a public account? That means that people who you don't know might be able to message you. Are you okay with that? As your mom, I'm actually not okay with that. Let's talk about it. So we really hope it does two things. One is, if you're the parent and you're not involved and you're too busy and all those things, you just know that when your teen is on Instagram, they cannot change those settings if
Right.
they're under the age of 16. But if you want to get involved, you can get more involved. And if you do get more involved and you set up the parental supervision, you actually get to see quite a lot of insights into how your teen is using Instagram as well, which
Like
is
what?
which is
Tara, tell us. Tell us the
yeah.
scoop. I want to
So
hear the detail. Oh my God, our
yeah,
kids. I feel sorry for them.
yeah.
I'm going to be
So
like,
yeah, but look, it's important because some
yeah.
parents really want to be more involved. Other parents
Yes.
just want to have that peace of mind that they're in the strict restrictive settings. That's cool. I'm
Right.
going to leave them
Right.
where
And
they are.
fair enough. I'm not judging at
Yeah,
all. At
yeah,
all.
yeah,
At
yeah,
least you guys are taking charge in this and actually listening to parents, because I think parents love to point fingers. They do.
yeah,
They don't
yeah.
like to take the
Right.
responsibility. I think for me it's easier to blame other people. And at the end of the day, thank God that you guys are actually taking the steps and listening to the parents, because I think there is a point where it felt a little bit like it got out of control. I don't know if you
Yeah,
understand. Like, it seemed like we had some control, and then all of a sudden, the more
yeah.
you're on it, you start to see the little bit of the setbacks of the negativity or the bullying or the
Yeah.
randos that DM you, and you're like, oh God, what
What's
happening?
going on?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Look, and absolutely, and that's really where we want to meet parents where they
yeah,
are and to say to them, look, if your teen is on Instagram as a platform, and by the way, we've extended this now to both Facebook and Messenger just in April time. So, we're not kind of this is not a stagnant tool that we're going to be bringing this to kind of across
across
more
the
meta.
board, you think? Yeah,
Yeah, because again, where teens are is where parents obviously have the questions and concerns. We want to make sure that we're and that it's really easy. You know that if your teen is on Facebook or your teen is on Instagram or if your teen is using Messenger as a messaging service within Meta, that they've got the teen account experience. And then hopefully over time, you as the parent will start to really feel like and understand the experience that they're having, whether it's
absolutely.
whatever platform they're on within the kind of the Meta family of apps. Your question about insights. So if you set up supervision on Instagram, there's a few different things you can go that step further with. So one is around DMs. So this is direct messages on Instagram.
Yes,
Um,
tell me, Tara, tell me what's going to happen.
so we debated and we spoke with parents about, some parents want to see the contents of their children's teenagers' messaging. Some parents felt, no, that's going a step too far. It's like opening the diary,
Right.
our generation, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a step too far. So we really tried with this. So what we do is we give parents what we call messaging insights. So it means that if you're in the supervision tool on Instagram, you can see who your teen has been messaging over the last 7 days, all of the account names of who your teen has been messaging over the last 7 days. And that means that then you can have a conversation with your teen and say, hey, I see you're messaging whatever the
So
name
and so.
is.
Yep.
Do I know them? Because, are they a friend from school or are they a new friend from football, whatever. So you get to see who they've been messaging, but you don't get to see the messages themselves. You can also see who your teen has blocked on Instagram. That'll pop up on your phone as well. You can see that your teen has blocked someone. And again, we hope that it will,
Open a
initiate a
conversation.
conversation
Yep.
about why have you blocked them. It could be a friend or it could be someone, that they didn't know and or that they followed and then they were like, oh, actually, I'm not so happy about this, so I want to block them. So the parent will be alerted to that as well. And then the third thing is that we give parents far more insight or in control over the amount of time that your teen spends on Instagram. So with the broader teen accounts, we have now a 60-minute time limit reminder that pops up once you're, in the teen account experience. And we also have turned off notifications in what we describe as the sleep mode. And this is based on research with experts, whereby, as I said, there's no expert advice about the perfect amount of time that you shouldn't spend on social media. However, what there is there's a lot of evidence and advice and professional advice about the importance of sleep when you're a teen for the development of their brains and mood, all of those things, right? So
Yeah.
sleep is incredibly important when you're a teenager. And so we developed sleep mode, which was no notifications between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So, and the person on the other side, if they try to send a message, they'll see this person is in sleep mode. So again, hopefully nudging them to think, oh, okay, but they won't get a notification. But again, you can take a step
Love that.
further if you're a parent and you are in the parental supervision tool. You can extend those. So we at Instagram set the 1 hour limit during the day, the one limit reminder, and we set the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. no notifications. You can go a step further and you can just completely block Instagram if you're the parent for certain periods during the day. So it could be a complete block at night, it could be a complete block during school hours. And that means that your teen, they can't click through. And the way I would describe it to your listeners is if they use any of the time limits already on Instagram or time limits on Apple, which I use. So you will set a time limit and then you get told you're at your time limit and then you can just click through, give me 15 more minutes, right? Give me 5 more minutes. And it's very, very easy to do that. with the blocking mode on Instagram, your teen cannot ask for 15 more minutes or 5 more minutes. They're just completely blocked. And then they'd have to have a conversation with their parent if they
Okay.
want to change that. So again, it's really like it's giving parents that additional, I suppose, control. Now the teen can end the parental supervision relationship if they want to, right? So you can we've gamed this. I mean, the good news is everyone who worked at Instagram was once a teenager.
True.
And some of them were teenagers quite recently, frankly. Some brilliant people who are in their 20s. I'm not, but yeah, we've got
We're
amazing
not, but thank
engineers
God for
who
them.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, they sit around the game out. How would a teenager try to get around this? So
Yes.
let's say the parent blocks them for a certain period of, during the day and they're not happy, they can end the parental supervision relationship with the parent. So we thought that it was right that you have to do that mutually. So the parent and the teen have to agree to be in a supervisory relationship. So, but if the teen does that, they just go back into our most restrictive settings. So they can't ask the parent to have I want to have a public account and I want to have less time
Right.
limits on on Instagram and then kind of get rid of the parental supervision. No, no, no. If they try to do that, we just put them place the whole account back into the most restrictive set of settings. So, of course, like some teens might really try to game it out. But we think we've pretty much gone down every avenue as to how we think a teen is going to try to get around some of this.
Which is interesting having the younger, right? The younger people that understand. I mean, my son's a
Yeah,
gamer. I mean, they are really advanced on technology where
incredible.
he could get around. I had a friend's son literally say to me, "She thinks I don't know how to get it." He said something that I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my God, these kids are so smart. They're
Of
running
course, there's
circles around
comments.
us, Tara. Like,
Yeah,
I don't even know
yeah,
what to say." So, thank God. And I
yeah.
think kids do want restrictions. You know how we used to say when we were young, kids do like rules. They do better with restrictions. Parents who say they don't pay any attention. Kids actually, I think, do thrive better with
Yes.
restrictions and parents actually caring. So the fact that we're taking control, and as scary as that sounds, I think they're
Yeah.
going to really appreciate it.
I think so, particularly the younger teens.
Yeah.
I think this is a really important for listeners is that, if you have a 13 or like, we both have 13, if you have a
Yeah.
13 or a 14-year-old, the way you parent that 13 and 14-year-old is so different to the way you parent a 17-year-old. And I think that's something that we've really are doing differently at Meta and at Instagram now is recognizing that
Yeah.
sweeping everything's, we have all these rules for under 18s and then over 18s is totally different. No. What we've done is we've really differentiated that younger teen experience versus the older teen experience. So while all teens under the age of 18 are automatically placed into the teen account experience, we are putting younger teens into this more protective setting because if they want to change any of those settings, they do have to get their parent to approve it as well. So, and then I mentioned that we've included some, we're building other tools, and what we do
Tell
then with
us,
the
tell us
tools
what you're
that we
building.
build is we also put those into the teen account experience. So we have a filter on DMs, which we've had for a bit of time, which looks for content that is probably inappropriate. It could be nudity content. And so we filter that out of your DMs. We've been doing that as I said, for a while. Now you cannot change that filter. You can't turn that filter off
Okay.
without getting the parent to approve it,
Okay.
right? So that's important. And again, I don't want it to sound too scary for your listeners because yes, it could be nudity content, and frankly, like some teens do share nudity content,
And
but
Tara,
also could
let's
be
talk about. I
some
mean,
really
there is OF. There's the OnlyFans that that are now posting, and
yeah,
I've seen my son's friends liking and
yeah,
following these young girls that are beautiful and amazing. But there is some
yeah.
spicy content on there that unfortunately they can see.
And you don't want your teen to come across that,
Yeah.
particularly when they're younger teen, right? So
Yes.
yeah, no, it's really important. So the other tool that we have turned on within the teen account experience to the most restrictive is what we call the sensitive content control. So sensitive content control is kind of a bucket that we put all of our most sensitive content into. And again, just to be very clear, this is not content that violates our policies. If the
Yes.
content violates our policies, we find it and we remove it. So nudity content, for instance.
Yeah, Tara, what
Um,
is something that you would say is absolutely violating? What does violate
well,
Instagram and Meta's? What
like
is it?
sexual nudity content
Okay.
violates,
Absolutely.
terrorist content
Okay.
violates, anything to do with child sexual exploitation absolutely
Okay.
violates our, and we have We have zero tolerance. We have built the most advanced AI to find that kind of content and remove it before anyone, would see
Okay.
it. Like, will we ever be at 100%? No, but honestly, I think we are the best in the
Okay.
business when it comes to the technology that we have to find and remove that. And then we have teams that work, who are steeped in child protection, who work with law enforcement and who are very, very professional in that regard. That kind of content we find we remove. The sensitive content control is different. It's content that, like, as the name suggests, sensitive, right? So it could be the example I often use is like trailers for movies. So The Godfather,
Right.
or like
Any
even
movie.
more innocent movies might have violence or a car crash or something in them, right? That you just don't want your teen to come across
Right.
accidentally.
Yeah.
And certainly we as Instagram don't want to be recommending that kind of content to a teenager. So we would put that kind of content into what we call sensitive content control, and we have that turned to seeing the least. And then the teen cannot change that filter, or that control, without getting the parents' permission to do so. And again, I kind of can't imagine the conversation would happen between the parent with one of the things we've seen. So we've had now over 6 months, right? Like almost
Yeah.
9 months of teen accounts in the US, UK, Australia, and it's rolling out globally now, but we're not quite at
What
100%
have you
of
seen
kind of.
in these 6 months? Have you seen a difference?
Yeah, we have. And the two things that well, many things we've seen, but two things to share, really, that I think your listeners will.
Please share with us.
So one is we now have well over 60 million teens in the teen account
Oh,
experience,
wow.
which is a lot of teens.
Yeah.
And that's going up like quite considerably because we're rolling it out in places like India and Japan with big populations. So that's one thing. It's and just technically it's working, and it's working really well because we're automatically moving these teens across. We're not asking their permission, we're just doing it. So
Wow.
just technically it's quite the challenge. So that's working. The other statistic, which I think is probably the most promising, is that we've seen that 97% of teens who are in that younger teen group, so the 13 to 15-year-old grouping, they are staying in the most restrictive settings. So they're not asking their parent to approve any of those settings. They're just sticking with those settings. And I think we can surmise a few things from that. I think one of them is they haven't noticed, which is fine by us. If they're just enjoying Instagram and they haven't noticed it, then great,
Good.
they're having a good experience. Or they like to be in these more restrictive settings. And you said,
I think so.
teens do like rules and
I
they do
agree.
like controls to some extent. So we think it's probably a mixture of both of those things. They either haven't noticed, or they have noticed, but actually they
Feels
appreciate it.
good.
And
It
yeah, and
probably
like
feels good. Like you feel
it feels
safer. There
good.
is something about feeling
Yeah,
safer, even as an
yeah,
adult, Tara. I'm on every day. I can honestly tell you, I use social media 24 hours a day. And, on Instagram is my biggest account. It's who I, communicate with. We've built an incredible community there. I'm
yeah,
so grateful for it. But yes, is there negativity? Are there hard days? And you notice the little bit of like one negative comment opens the door for all the negativity. One
yeah.
positive comment opens the door for positivity. It's
Yes,
insane
it
how
does.
that works. And then I
Yeah, yeah.
imagine how it affects me. And I'm pretty thick skinned, obviously, being on here. But I always think, like, when I get these messages, I think, like, I can't even imagine a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, receiving something like this. So I do think that the feeling safe that maybe you won't have to I get anxious when I'm opening DMs because I don't know if it's going to be hate or if it's going to be kind. So if I'm feeling that anxiety, imagine a child. So I think it probably feels really good to feel safe that there is someone protecting you.
Yeah, to know that. I think, look, I completely agree. And I'm sorry that you've had some bad experiences, by the way.
I think it's normal. I think this is what you guys are working on. And I think that's why
Yeah,
I appreciate it so much because I think the content creators were looking for a little protection. And I think the fact that it's starting with the teens, that only means it's only going to move up from there. And we so
yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, no, thank you. I'm glad you said that. I think that's right. I think teens do really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
when we speak to teens, the things that they also don't want to be contacted by people they don't know,
Right.
either because they just,
It's
it's just a
gross.
waste
It's
of their
weird.
resources,
Yeah.
or it's gross and weird. Yes,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's either like, don't waste my time. I don't want to be connected with somebody who I've never heard of, or yeah, I don't want to be connected with a stranger who I don't know. And I think all teenagers, no matter where they live in the world, they want to communicate with their
Yeah.
friends. They don't want to talk to people, and particularly they don't want to be connected with adults that they don't know. So I think that's definitely appreciated by teens. And I think we do not allow adults to be able to connect with teens that they don't know or they're not connected with. Like that is, we do not allow that
Thank
anyway.
God.
But what
I
we've done is
mean,
made it even more restrictive within teen accounts that the teen can't be tagged or mentioned by
any
someone that they don't
adult
know.
that they don't know.
Any adult. They don't know, they're not connected to you. You have aunts and uncles, and
Of
of course
course.
you've got,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that those connections are made, but we do want to make it a bit harder. So even for the adults that you have to follow them and follow back. Like there has to be that
And we
relationship
all
before you.
know, Tara, I hate to say this, and it's a scary thought, but sometimes even our family members aren't looking out for our best interest.
Oh,
So,
no,
when it
absolutely.
comes
No,
to you see the
absolutely.
child,
Yeah, yeah,
right? You
yeah,
see the child
yeah,
exploitation. I mean, you see what goes
yeah,
on, obviously.
yeah,
And I think it's incredible that you're making it. I think it should be hard for family too. No one should just be
yeah.
posting your child online.
No, no, they shouldn't. And I think, I think one of the things we really want teens, like, you know, adults to know as well is that, if you do have a negative experience, if somebody has tried to contact you, that there are ways to report,
Okay.
to block, that blocking is completely anonymous. So the person who you've blocked does not know that they've been blocked. I think it's really important. And, if something is reported to us, so we do have ways of looking at what we describe as suspicious behavior,
Yeah.
which again, it could be completely benign, but we do look for signals. So if an adult tries to connect with teens and tries to send out friend requests to teens, we can see behind the scenes that that's happening, and we would place that adult into kind of a suspicious
Okay.
category, and we add like protective layers around that. So AI is extraordinary at how we're able to utilize it to be able to make sure that like we're keeping particularly young people, but adults that are using our platform as safe as we can. And that's something that I feel really good about in the future is like AI. I mean, everyone's talking about it,
I know
and
everyone's
but
scared, but there is good sides to it. I'm
oh,
sorry.
there really is. There really, I mean, it's an at speed and having, we have within Meta, we have human reviewers who obviously AI is used as the kind of first port of call. And then, of course, you know, particularly something like bullying and harassment,
Yeah.
it can be highly contextual, right? So something might look benign, but it actually could be bullying. And so what we really encourage people to report bullying on our platform, because then we can understand the context of what's going on and we can report that,
What
the
can
individuals
parents, Tara, can you, because I know the bullying is I know a lot of parents wrote to me when I said I was speaking to you. I got a
yes,
lot of
okay.
DMs, just asking, they're just afraid. Everyone's afraid of their kid getting hurt at the end of the day, right? All we care about is our kids being happy, feeling safe, feeling, included. And I know the bullying is definitely a big issue for parents just because it's just so easy now to type
Yeah.
away and hurt someone's feelings. What are the steps? What advice do you have for parents? Can you just speak a little bit deeper on that for us? Because I know we're all really concerned.
Yeah, and again, completely fair, I think, for
Yeah.
parents to be concerned about it, because bullying happens in the schoolroom
Yes.
or in the playground, and then it happens on social media, right?
Yeah.
These things, there isn't a barrier. And I think a lot of parents, I feel it as a mom, is that, not to be nostalgic about the olden times, but you did go home and kind of there was a bit of solace at home if you
Yes.
if you were having a negative experience with your friends. So yes, we do a lot on this. As I said, I think it's highly contextual, and so what we have within our like strict rules, we do not allow for bullying and harassment, and any content that we can see that's picked up by AI or is sent to reviewers and is deemed to be bullying and harassing, we remove that content, and then we do contact the person who's done the bullying, and we send resources and we have a system of enforcement against them. We don't
Okay.
talk about exactly what that is
Right.
because we don't want people to kind of game the
Of
system,
course.
but we do. But within there are then a number of other things that we do, right? So we do not, so we go in a step further when it comes to teens to keep them safe from bullying and harassment. So one of the things I talked about is you can't be tagged or mentioned by someone you're not already following and following back, so you're not connected to them.
Okay.
So if there's a bully in the school who's a year, maybe the year above you, and you're not connected to them on Instagram, they cannot tag or mention you in any of their posts And again, I think that's really important because what you
Yes,
don't want is that your teen is tagged and,
absolutely.
mocked basically by somebody else on Instagram. So
Absolutely.
do not allow for that if you're not already kind of
Love that.
connected to each other. And then if you are connected and you're suffering, because, unfortunately, bullying can be,
Your best friend. I hate to
yeah, it
say it.
can be, I
It
know it
can.
can,
I
it
know.
can, it's awful.
It's
Yeah. So,
awful.
you might want to block them. The other tool that we have that was built specifically for bullying and harassment, it's also available for adults, is called Restrict. But we really built it with and for teens. So it's a few years old now, but what we weren't understanding was why teens were not using the block function more. And so we did research with teens to ask them. And what they said was like, actually, if you are suffering from or the victim of bullying, blocking someone doesn't necessarily work because you actually want to be able to see what that person is saying or doing, not about you necessarily, but like in the rest of their lives, right? Because then you can be you have a bit more power, right? So you can
Right.
see that that person's gone to this party or done X or done Y. By being completely blocked, actually, it doesn't necessarily help you as the victim. So what you can do is you can place an account into what we describe as the restrict function, the restrict tool.
Okay.
It means that the individual who has been restricted cannot tag or mention or comment on anything that any of your posts. It can't be seen by anyone else. So they think they're commenting, but no one can see it. So you're basically taking the power back, and that
Love that.
person who's bullying you is almost kind of shouting into the void, but they think that they're, you know,
Bullying. I mean,
they
they think they're getting away with
they
it,
think
but
that
they're
they've
not.
written a horrible comment, but actually no one can see that comment. And it's really,
Oh, our
it's
parents
a
need to
tool
know
that was
about
built
that.
for
I think
just,
that's
yeah,
amazing to know. Just
yeah,
to, just to protect yourself and take your power
yeah.
back.
Absolutely. And the other one that we have is hidden words. So again, hidden words we developed actually for creators to
Those,
start
it's
with.
great. It's
Now,
great,
you
Tara.
oh,
Yes,
good,
it's
I'm glad.
great.
Yeah.
Will you
Yeah,
explain it
it's
to
great.
our viewers? Because obviously, as
Yeah.
a creator, I know what it is. Please explain it because it's actually fascinating.
Yeah, so hidden words are a bunch of offensive words, again, not violating, because if they're violating, they should not be on our platform, but
Right.
they're, offensive words that we have compiled together with civil society and other experts, again, available in many, many languages, not just in English, whereby these are, generally offensive words and they're put into what we call the hidden words list. And that then is turned on. So with teen accounts, if you've got a teen account on Instagram, we turn on hidden words. It means that you will not see any of these words in your comments or in any kind of tagging or mentions or anything of you will not see any of these offensive words, but you can also add to the hidden words list. So if there's a particular word that you find offensive, it could be because you've been bullied for something.
Yeah.
So someone might describe, like, I've got curly hair, right? So somebody might say something mean about my curly hair.
Right.
I could put
Curly hair.
curly into the
Yeah.
hidden words list, and I'm not going to see anything with that word for a certain period of time because I might be going through something difficult. I just don't want to see the word. It's triggering for me. I don't want to see it.
Mm,
And so you can add to the hidden
yeah.
words list. As I said, it's turned on automatically for all teens who are using Instagram. I would suggest people turn it on,
I
go
was going
into
to say,
settings.
even
It's
for
really easy
all
to
of us,
find.
right, Tara? Don't you
Yeah,
think it's good for everyone to just
it's very,
protect their mental health as much as
yeah,
possible and just
yeah.
why not use these tools that you guys are implementing,
Absolutely. Yeah,
right?
yeah. I would strongly encourage people to, I would encourage people to go into the settings and to look at it's called the Family Center. It's the Meta Family Center. You can find it, you can either Google it,
Okay.
or you can go into Instagram, into your settings, and then you can scroll down, you'll see Family Center. And we've really invested very heavily in the resources in the Family Center. And again, we did this when we were launching teen accounts because we were kind of coming back out to remind parents about both how we're now putting their teens into the most restrictive settings, but also really like hopefully there for them. And we've gone out and we have worked with a bunch of, again, organizations, Connect Safely in the
Yeah.
US, but across the globe, and experts in this space to create resources for parents. So how do you have a conversation with your teen about their use of social media? How do you not sound like a complete nerd who doesn't know what they're talking about, right? What if your teen actually has something negative has happened, that they've blocked someone or they've reported something? How do you have that conversation with them? I love it. And I really would recommend people, even if you've got like 15 minutes on a Friday with a cup of
Yeah.
coffee, just go in and have a look because I learned, look, I'm in this is my world. But even I, as a parent, the examples of if you want to talk to your teen, maybe do it in the car when
I
you're
was going to
side
ask
by
you,
side.
Tara, that's funny you said that because it must be interesting wearing both hats as a parent
Yeah.
because you see things. It's like my friend who's a pediatrician. He sees things as a doctor and then he sees things as a parent, and it's fascinating the difference. And as a mom, as you know, how do you start that? I was going to ask you, what is the best tips for parents to have that conversation about social media, whether they're just getting on, maybe just asking to want to be on, or maybe they're on now and you're just trying to maybe implement yourself a little bit more because you understand that you do have a little power as a parent. And
Yeah.
Meta is helping you have a little power.
Yes, and I always say to people, invoke us, blame Instagram, say, hey, listen, Instagram is saying you have to be 13, so you have to be 13. So I would say to parents, like, blame us, that's fine. We're absolutely fine with you telling your teen that they cannot join Instagram until they're over at the age they should be, which is 13.
So 13
So
is the age, right, Tara? 13 is the
13 is
age
the
that you
age,
can,
yeah,
okay.
for Instagram. That's important. But again, the parent might say, actually, I'd rather you were 14, and that's also fine. But please don't be younger than 13 because we build
Why do you
the
say that,
platform.
Tara? Because I see 9 and 10-year-olds obsessed watching their sisters, the
Yeah. Yeah.
Instagrams, the real. Why 13? I'm curious.
For a couple of things, so within US law, 13 is the age where
Okay.
you can have social media. But look, it's more important than that. It's the age where a lot of teens, they're moving into the teenage years.
Yeah.
Often it's when you're starting to go to a new school, right?
Right.
And within the US system and within the European
True.
system as well.
Yep.
So there is an age at which we think that teens actually have started the maturing process. However, as I said, if you're under the age of 13, what we try to do at Instagram is we try to build content and build kind of barriers around content that you shouldn't be seeing if you're under certain ages. So we're very strict about under and over 18-year-old content. So we really do encourage people, give us your correct age because we then build an experience for you based on your correct age. Now, listen, we talked about this at the start.
Please tell me, Tara. I'm
Teens lie
dying for
about
you to
their
tell.
age.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know a few
yeah,
kids who lied. I'm not going to mention any names on here.
yes.
What's
Oh,
the
yeah.
truth on
Teens
that?
lie about their age. So there's
What is it? Tell me the truth.
It's very hard to be absolutely sure about
Right.
people's age. I'm not going to lie about
I
that.
appreciate that.
It is really hard.
Yeah.
I think at Meta, we're probably doing the most around this, and even we find it hard. So we have got a bunch of things that we do to find and remove people who we think aren't the right age, or if they're not the right age, we place them into the right age kind of
Bracket.
bucket within
Okay.
Instagram. So there's a bunch of things we do. So we ask for your age when you first join Instagram. And then if you give us the wrong age and then you try to change it really quickly because the teen realizes, then we ask you to verify your age. So if we can see that there's a discrepancy. If you're under the age of 18 and you try to change your date of birth to over the age of 18, the technology can tell that it's actually not your birthday, but you're trying to change your date of birth. So you might have been on Instagram for a year, you're 15, you've actually decided you want Instagram to think that you're 20, you try to
Okay.
change your date of birth. We will ask you to go through an age verification process, and we give you two options to do this. One is a video selfie. So you upload a video selfie. It's a third party partner that we use called Yoti.
Okay.
And they do this extraordinary technology where they can really tell the difference between under and over 18-year-old. It's extraordinary. And I
That's
think
so
I think
cool.
it's 98% accurate. Yeah.
That's really cool.
And getting better and better, honestly. So we ask you to go through a video selfie. If you don't want to go through the video selfie, although most teens do, it's actually what they prefer to do.
Yeah.
You can upload ID. So you can upload, and we will accept quite a large number of IDs. Again, as we say, no, we didn't come down in the last shower. If you are using fake ID, there are teams that human reviewers look through these IDs and they will make sure that they are very genuine IDs. So that's if you're trying to change your age from under to over 18. And so we also then look at, signals on your account. So if an account is reported to us, could be for anything, but let's say an account is reported to us for bullying and harassment. The reviewers will go through an age check. They'll look at the account. And this is just an automatic, kind of within the decision trees that our reviewers work through. One of them is to look at the age on the account. And if the reviewer thinks that the account doesn't look the age that they're telling us, they will again ask them to go through the age verification process of Yoti or uploading an ID. What we're also doing is going through, at the moment, we are testing very advanced technology, AI, in the US to try to find teens who have lied about their age when they first joined Instagram.
I was going to say, it's
So,
the first join. That's when they all first
yeah,
joined. I
the
think they
first
were
join.
12, maybe like 11 and 12.
Yeah,
And they were all
yeah,
saying they
yeah.
were 13, I think, or
13,
14,
yeah.
something like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they're like those teens they're aging up, right? So if you've told us that you're 22 But we're using technology to kind of the simplest way of describing this is like we're predicting the age. So we're kind of running technology through the system to see whether or not the age that you told us you are is the age that you look like. And the kinds of things we look at is your profile picture. So you've told us you're 22, but your profile picture looks like it could be a 15-year-old.
Okay.
And then on top of that, maybe all of your followers look like they're about the age of 15, 16. The creators that you're following are predominantly creators that we would
Teens.
associate with a younger teen.
Right.
But what we're going to do in this situation is rather than putting them through the age verification, age assurance process, which is, look, frankly, quite cumbersome, is we're taking more of a precautionary principle. We're going to just move them across into our most protective settings, similar to the teen account settings. So if we think you're 15, you've told us you're 22, you're basically going to be moved across into our most protective settings.
Okay.
And again, then if you want to change those settings, depending on your age, you can either change the settings because you're 17, fine. But if you're younger than that, you'll have to set up parental supervision in order to be able to do so. So we're testing that in the US. We do need to get it right, because what we do not want to do is, we're moving adults, bona fide adults who might be, married
Maybe
and have
they
their own
should be.
children.
Tara,
And
maybe we need to move some of the adults into the
well, that's
restricted
probably
area.
true. That's probably true. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I think it's running really well in the US
How
that we're
long do you think
using
it'll be like
technology to do
globally
that.
out there?
So I would say we'll be rolling it out next year. What we try to do is with any of these really quite fundamental changes, we do take our time and we want to get it right. This is really a fundamental change that if we think that you're not the age that you're telling us you are, we're going to move you into our most restrictive settings. It's quite a big
Take on.
decision to do, so we
Yeah.
want to make sure we're doing it correctly. And then the last thing is that we're calling for, and me and the teams have been doing a lot of work on this recently, which is around what we describe as App Store level age verification.
What's that?
Breaking it down, we have our age modeling and
Okay.
we have our AI tools that we use, and we have this multi-layered approach to knowing and understanding age. But it's still really hard, right? So knowing and understanding age and doing this at a global level as well. So what we think makes it easier, particularly for parents, the way we describe it is it's an umbrella or like an extra layer of
Yeah.
protection if you're a parent worrying about your teen has lied about their age. When your teen gets their phone for the first time,
Okay.
it's either usually Apple or Android, right? They're the
Right.
two
Yep.
phones. And you as a parent will buy the phone or start the contract with them. And when they get the phone, they will have to give the correct date of birth
Yes.
when they are setting up their phone for the
Right.
first time.
Yep.
And that's usually under the supervision of a parent at that particular moment in time. So we think this is like the kind of the golden moment where the correct age is inputted. And what we think then would make a lot of sense is that age signal, and not necessarily the age itself, but the age signal is then shared by all the app stores. Apple is an app store, Google is an app store,
Right.
that they share that signal with all the apps in their app stores, so that
Wow.
if we use our AI technology and it looks like this person is 15, right? And the app store is also telling us that this person is 15, we feel good, like bingo, okay, we've definitely got the right age. We're going to make sure that we're building the right experience for that person because they're 15. If the number we have, so it looks like you're 16, but actually the app store is telling us that you're 12, we want to know that, right? If we think that we've got it wrong, but there's this extra layer that we can check. And also, it's really simple for the parents because the parents don't have to worry that every time their teen is downloading an app, that they're downloading an app that's like for the right age group, the
Exactly.
appropriate age group. So
Right.
if they know that the signal is being shared and that your teen actually has this additional kind of protective layer, we think it makes a lot of sense and really speaks to parents. Yeah, and this is
It does. I
really
mean, it makes perfect
simple.
sense.
Yeah, yeah.
You think that's going to happen, Tara?
It's moving really well in the US, particularly, which has been great to see. So, the state of Utah passed a law now about a month ago. I think they were the first state to pass it, requesting obligating App Store level age verification. And I want to be very clear, this is not us shirking responsibility. We will continue to do what we do and we'll continue to invest in the age prediction technology I spoke about. I think now we have maybe 15 or 16 states in the US who have picked this up and are looking at proposals around App Store level age verification, which is great.
Wow.
And then There's been a federal bill that's been proposed maybe a month ago as well, a little bit less than that. So there's real momentum in the US, which is great because,
Great.
anything that happens in the US usually has repercussions across the rest of the world.
I mean,
Yeah, they're pretty mighty
I,
force. So we're really pleased, and I think it just makes sense for parents, right? I think there's
it really
as a parent,
does.
you just like make it a bit easier for parents that that you buy the phone, you input the age, and at that age, it's privacy protective. Teens don't have to enter their date of birth constantly because as some parents might think, I don't feel comfortable with that, which is completely fair. If you're just doing it once because you're setting up the phone, let's just make sure that that signal, as I said, the actual date of birth, the privacy around that, absolutely not shared. Just the signal is shared so that every other app store, and look, Instagram, Meta, like we're a big company. We're
Yeah.
investing in this really heavily. But if you're a smaller company, if you're a startup,
Yeah.
again, often that's where teens are. Like they're
They're the first
innovative,
ones in on the new thing.
right?
Yes.
And so wouldn't it feel good if you're a parent that that like if your teen is on this new app that you've never even heard of,
Honestly, I didn't think of it that way because honestly, they mention things and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about
I
or
mean, I'm
apps.
Googling it.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And I'm like, if I just knew that at the end of the day, at least I know that the age is right. Their age is in there so that they know that
Yeah.
they're that young.
Yeah. And private information belonging to your child is not being shared across
Right.
multiple apps.
It is nice to know that there is something being done to help us because it isn't necessarily about not caring. Sometimes
I really think so. I really hope that I don't know whether when it'll be in a year or two's time, that parents will feel a sense of the burden has been lifted, because I do think parents have felt this burden, and they're either kind of willfully neglecting, thinking, I don't even know
I
where
don't
to
want to deal.
start, so I'm gonna,
Yeah.
yeah. Or parents are like involved and really concerned, and then honestly they're reading a lot of media, which media will whip up things and obviously always
Well, there's so
reports
much
the negative.
attacking, there's so many
Yeah,
opinions
yeah,
because
yeah.
everyone criticizes you for everything.
One of the things I find is funny is that like policymakers are usually, not always, but usually of a certain age,
Yep.
right?
Right.
And they don't have enough opportunity to talk to teens. And you asked about how do I talk to my teens about it? I mean, they're a brilliant sounding board. I would say to people like, I get it wrong. Honestly, I'm speaking to you now. My
Please tell
son's
us.
downstairs. He's come from school. He's probably gaming. Honestly, he should be doing his homework, but I will go downstairs and I'll be like, "Are you doing your homework? No, you're gaming, right? Stop, get off." I will
Right.
have the same conversation that
You're
every other
human
parent.
too. Even at the
Yeah,
head of the realm, you're human too.
we all work, and again, I hope that they're having a positive experience.
Yeah.
But one of the things I try to do with them is really to try to have conversations with no judgment, because particularly with my daughter who's 15. And so she's just in that space now where she and her friends are starting to have a bit more freedom. They're
Yeah.
starting to go out, they're meeting up with boys
Yeah.
and girls, and
Yeah.
all those things are happening. And that's great. But I want her to know that if she does have a negative experience, whether that's offline or particularly online, that she can talk to me about it. And I think it's really, really important, because what I worry about is that teens might come to the parent or a responsible adult and tell them that they've seen something, and the parent will react negatively and kind of blame the teen for who was that person, where did you meet them, why were you following,
Yes.
or why did they send you that, whatever,
Yes.
rather than take the step back and say, okay, what can I do to help you? And actually, there are resources out there, whether that's on Instagram. If a teen has shared an image that they didn't mean to share, there are so many ways that we can help them. You want your teen to know that rather than to hide it.
Is there help for kids? We do know of a few kids that unfortunately photos were sent. They were a little bit blackmailed,
Yeah,
bamboozled, and it happens. What can
yeah.
parents do? Because I do think in this teenage year, it is trickling around here and there. What
No,
is
of
your best
course.
advice for them?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's a really difficult subject, I think, for parents, because it's not necessarily a worst nightmare, but it's up there with one of your worst
You
nightmares.
never think
Uh,
it's going to be your kid. I mean, you kind of, I think
yeah.
parents are, mortified, but
And
things
the
happen.
teen is mortified.
Yes.
And as a parent of a boy, I
Yeah.
actually worry about it more with him
Me
than I
too.
even do with my daughter. So I think young teenage boys are particularly vulnerable and susceptible to this. The first thing I would say is there are criminal gangs who do this, right? And so really, really, it's important that parents understand that it's not that their teenager has been stupid or tricked. Like we're talking, there are criminal gangs who are behind this, and you should treat it like that. That it's pretty serious, but it's not your teen's fault. It's really
Yes.
not your teen's fault. So these people will do anything, and they'll use all sorts of ways and
Yes.
means to try to, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we can talk about teen accounts, the fact that I think that really does help and add that protection. That's why it's so
Yeah.
important that we have the age and
Yes.
we're placing the teen into the teen account experience. But if it does happen, absolutely. So you report it to us as soon as it happens, and we have reporting flows that are very easy to find. Just the top three little dots on the top of your content, your post on Instagram or your DM if it's in a DM, and you can report that to us. And then we take you through very, very sensitively a flow which explains what it is. And then we will find that content and we will remove it. And then we report it. So we report it to an organization and take it down. What they do is they create what we describe as a hash of that picture. And then that will run through. So it's not the picture itself. So
Okay.
it's completely anonymous. Anything that's personal or private will be completely kind of anonymized. It's just a digital print of that particular image. And that then is sent through the system. So it will be removed no matter where that piece of content
Okay.
it turns up. And I think it really is a huge solace to anyone, but particularly a teen, to know that
Absolutely.
that's not going to pop up somewhere else on the internet. And I think it's really important that companies like Meta, that we talk and work with other companies and organizations to make sure there's
Yes.
an industry-wide approach to this. And then the last thing I say is we have whole teams that work on being able to work with law enforcement. We've had numerous examples of where we've been able to identify criminal gangs outside of the US, in Africa, in Asia, that have been running these kinds of scams, and law enforcement has been able to make arrests on the basis of things that have been reported to us, and then our law enforcement team. So it is scary, but if it does happen to you and your teen, is don't judge them. This is kind of sometimes normal behavior among some teens,
Yeah.
as hard as that might sound like to hear,
Yeah.
but they have been targeted by criminal gangs, and you should treat them as that. Like, they need your love and they need your support. And behind the scenes, report it to us, and we will make sure that content is removed, and then it's reported further so that it can be removed across the entire of
Wow.
the internet.
I have one more question. I know I've talked your ear off. I'm so sorry. I could talk to you
It's
for
been great.
hours because this is so important, especially as a mom and as somebody who works in the industry. Obviously, I see it firsthand, and I'm constantly looking at analytics. I'm constantly looking at demographics. I mean, I'm an adult. I'm a 53-year-old woman, and I analyze my own demographic because I'm like, why would I have 90% men? Like, that doesn't make
Yes,
sense to me.
yes,
And
yeah,
that would be like, okay, why is my content being shown? So you kind of start to
yeah,
think
of
about
course.
children,
Yeah,
right? And you're
yeah.
like, yeah, you want to make sure that things are done right. And now we're seeing and this is the one last question I want to ask you because I could talk to you for hours. I'm fascinated by all of this. Being in the industry, there's a lot of, this has been glamorized now, being a content creator. Everybody
Mhm.
wants to be an influencer,
Yeah.
especially teens now. Now I'm seeing all the teen accounts and these girls with 5.5 million followers, 3.4 million, and I go through and I start looking at the demographics and I'm like kind of looking at how many men there are and
Mm.
what's going to change for the moms out there that are listening and our young girls out there that are glamorizing this industry, thinking that 13, 14, it's safe to be out there exposing yourself
Mm.
24/7, which
Mm.
it's just not. Are things going to change for the young people that are starting now that want to be influencers? Are they going to be immediately put into a teen account at that age? Like these girls now with 5.5, I can't imagine with the teen account could get away with that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, yes, we have teen creators, many teen
Right.
creators. And so they are also put into the teen account experience.
Okay.
There is no difference in terms of, we didn't make a decision that actually if you're a teen creator, you wouldn't have teen accounts, because we think it's really important that teen creators do have the same protections as everyone else. And indeed, that if they do want to change their settings, that they bring the parent or the responsible adult in their life into that conversation. So the only difference that we made with teen creators is that we gave them a bit more notice. We have teen creators who we know well. We have
Yeah.
teams within Meta who work with teen creators, and they were in touch with them to let them know you're included. Don't think that you're not.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
and you're going
fascinating.
to have to set up parental supervision like everyone else if you want to have a public account. So we had, and then if you were a teen creator, we actually did, if we didn't have a relationship with you, we just gave you a bit of extra notice to let you know this is what's going to happen, and really speak their language. This is what's going to happen and this is why. And really, again, to speak to them about why it's a good thing, why it's a protective experience, why a protective experience is a good thing, and how you can still grow your following if you want to on Instagram, but also have all the protections that we think you should have.
Right.
So you can have a public account. I mean, you can have, if you're a private account, you're not
Well,
going
and
to be a
some of
teen
these
creator.
parents are managing them. So the parents are
Yeah.
okay with it. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
and you need, and you want, and what we do is we send information to the parents. If you're a parent and you're supervising your teen, as you would if you were a teen account under the
Right.
age of 16 and you're a teen creator, that your parent and the responsible adult in your life can see what all of the protections are. And again, hopefully do things like, even if you have a public account on Instagram, you can still have so many protections for who can contact you, for the content that you can see. So you can still have all of the things like sensitive content control. You can have messaging restrictions. You can turn on the restrict function. You can turn on, well, hidden words is already turned on for you. So we want people to know that, yes, ideally, if you're under the age of 18, having a private account is, we think, the best way to do it. Teens do often have more than one Instagram account. That's very normal.
How do they manage all of this?
They might spend 2 minutes on it. I mean, they're not,
Yeah.
not going very deep.
Yeah.
But, a lot of teens, just as you say, consume. They just are using it for 10 minutes a day to have a giggle on Reels, and then they just put it to one side.
Yep.
Other teens might have a second account because they want to be a teen creator, and they're interested in fashion or in beauty or in climate change or building their community in the Amazon or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they're on for so many different reasons. And so we'll find that you could have teens with one or two or more accounts. But again, absolutely fine. We just want to make sure that if you do, that you have our most protective settings.
Right.
And you could have a public account, but also have the most protective settings. You could have a private account and also have the most protective settings. Just because you have a public account doesn't mean that you have none of those settings. Absolutely not. So yeah, teen creators are in teen
Not
accounts,
excluded.
everyone else not excluded. No.
Sorry.
They're just given a little bit more notice that they understand, because they're building their livelihood on it, which is
Absolutely.
extraordinary. But look, we really want them to stay safe,
be
and
safe.
we want them to not have negative experiences when they're on the platform.
Tara, it's been amazing talking to you. I so appreciate all the insight. I so appreciate you just letting us in and knowing that you guys are working on it. You are listening to the parents. You're going slow and steady for a reason, because it is such a big decision that you want to get it right, because this is going to be a lifelong commitment.
Oh yeah, it
Right?
really is. And we're only going to be improving
Yeah.
the teen account experience. And as I said, hopefully most teens just won't notice it, and they'll just be on Instagram, be on Facebook, you'd be using Messenger, and just be having a really positive experience. Honestly, that's what we hope. And if teens are not having such a great experience, they're not going to come back to the platform, right? We want them to come back to the platform. We want them to feel protected and be able to create and have joy on the platform and not worry about any of those negative things. And we want parents to feel good about it and more involved. If they do want to get more involved, hopefully we've made it easier for them to get a bit more involved in their teens' time on Instagram.
As a mom, as a creator, I know I really appreciate it. And I know this is a really important conversation and topic. So thank you for spending time. I hope you come back. We appreciate Meta supporting us and you supporting us as parents and as creators. Thank you for being here.
Good time.
Of course.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, bye guys. We'll see you next time on Coming in Hot. Please leave a review, questions, all positive, please. I love you all. Have the best week ever. Mwah.